5, 6, 7, 8. Good morning and afternoon. Good morning and afternoon. Good morning and afternoon. Good morning, morning and afternoon. Good morning and afternoon, everyone. There is Jeff, so I'm going to invite him on.
There he is.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Jeff. You sound great.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Hopefully,
Welcome.
thank you. It's a
So,
pleasure.
yes. So, for those that don't know, Jeff is a good friend of ours, and he's actually in the other room. In the other room, Jeff is hanging out with us, and we are quite enjoying him. He is our official baby bear.
Baby bear?
All right, so just to give a little background on what Saturday mornings and afternoons is all about, they are healing conversations through the lens of mental health, and this is in part of Thrive Artists Group, which is a mental health organization for artists. We offer support groups, one-on-one coaching, trainings, as well as classes. So look out for a lot of great things coming next month your way. So, welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. It's
So
an honor.
yes, let's just jump right in.
Do it. Let's do it.
All right. So tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do and what you do as an artist.
Sure. So we can start with I guess, the 9 to 5 part gig, but I am a wealth sales and service partner for KeyBank. So I am essentially a wealth coach, and I help folks in the Eastern region talk better to high value clients so that way they can help them with their investments and retirement planning and things of that nature. But as an artist, I'm a musician. So I've been classically trained and trained in jazz for, man, it feels 20 years because I'm 36. So yeah, I started more than 20 years. I started when I was 10. So 26 years I've been doing music, and I'm now getting into scoring, which I'm really, really passionate about because I'm a cinephile and I'm obsessed with movies. So the idea of being able to help a couple of folks out and support them recently with their creative visions for whatever medium that they're using, and then to help them tell a story through music. So that's what I do.
Awesome. You sound so passionate when you talk about it too.
Oh yeah, 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 absolutely. I'm
Well,
so obsessed with films. Nia, I actually have them tattooed all over my body. So,
so let's talk about this. What films do you have tattooed on your body?
so the first, my favorite one is probably The Fountain, which I guess you could kind of see there for the tree, and I have Death is the Road to Awe. The other one I have is Interstellar, which is the black hole Gargantua. And then the other one, which is my favorite, which I have, and then my dad and my twin have, which is Strength and Honor from Gladiator. So
Nice,
those are just a
nice.
few, but I have a total of 27. And when my twin finally stars as Macbeth, I'm gonna put that out there in the ether and manifest it. But when my twin GQ, I think his name is GQ Actor on IG, but when he stars as Macbeth, then I'll get Macbeth too. So
Nice,
film,
nice.
whatever medium that tells a story, that's what I'm all about.
Did you see what he put in the chat?
Oh, there he is. There you go. Strength Honor. That's right. That's right. We're gonna put that out there. So yeah, I'm super super excited to be here in LA with y'all and pursue my dreams, which is the reason why I'm out here, and for my son to pursue his dreams and for my partner to pursue her dreams. So
Awesome.
yeah,
I love that, because as artists, we all have a story and we all get to, that place that we're dreaming of in different ways. And I'm just really excited to talk about you and to kind of talk about your journey because you have like kind of this different perspective from, most of the artists that I've been talking to. So I'm just really excited to get into this with you.
yeah,
So
awesome.
let's keep going. So why is mental health important to you?
Mental health is important to me because, and it's a relatively newer concept, I think, for my family. And for the folks that know me, I would say the last few years is when I've really started to talk about mental health and go to therapy and do the research and do the work. But before that, I would have experiences because I was a performer and since middle school and then high school, and I was part of an orchestra and a traveling jazz band and all these things. But then I would get these crazy, I guess I would call them anxiety attacks. But back then, I had no idea what they were. So I would just get this like fear in the pit of my stomach. I would start freaking out. Always before big performances, maybe not TMI, but just had to disappear to the bathroom for like 40 minutes before
Mm-hmm.
perform, that type of thing. But I just thought it was normal, right? I thought it was just
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this is what everybody goes through, of course,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where you go up and play. But I think at that time I had such structure that was implemented from my father and my mother that the concept of anxiety was just, I didn't really have time. It was like, oh, all right, well, I have this performance at the jazz band, but then I got to go play the clarinet at the orchestra, and then I have to go participate in sports, and then I have to do my home. Like it was just never time, right? And
Yeah.
we didn't
And
really.
you were in that household where it was like all A's.
Yeah, 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 that type of household.
Yeah.
You bring home a B plus, and then and it's funny because my dad and I talk about it now, and I think he looks back on it and he says, "Ah, I was so hard on y'all. I was so hard on y'all." But yeah, that was the type of household. You didn't bring home a B minus. You didn't bring home a B. You brought home A's because my parents worked hard, and they sacrificed for my twin and I, and they put us in the top private schools in the country. So there was that level of expectation of you got to perform, you know?
Yeah.
And when I got into the finance industry and I was able to see what that sacrifice cost, it gave me a new perspective on love and how much our parents loved us and what they
Wow.
felt was the right thing for us to be competitive in this type of world, So kudos to my parents. Shout out to the parents.
I love that. That's so awesome. Um, oh, look what Mike said. I don't have time for mental health. Feel that for sure.
Seriously, there was very little time for that stuff. And I think even the concept of what happened to me in high school, I don't, have we talked about this? Did we? I don't know. I went to Hopkins, so this is probably the first time I'm talking about it publicly. But I went to Hopkins and there was an incident where a teacher hit me. And there were two other teachers that were standing right next to that teacher. And so they brought me into a room because they thought I was being disobedient. There was a fire drill or something, and I was like, "Oh, I got to leave the track and field to go to this other location." And I guess they thought I was disobeying his orders or something. But these three Caucasian older men brought me into a room, and yeah, assaulted me. And it's interesting because when you think about what's going on with Black Lives Matter, you think about what's going on in this country. If that happened in 2022, it would be all over the news, right? It would be
Yes.
everywhere. But this was
There would be marches right now.
exactly, and
Yeah.
this was 2001, and so I think that was my first introduction into something that was traumatic.
Hmm.
Very very traumatic because it was violent. It wasn't like yeah, it was like, nah, the man, he squared up, he hit me. So I didn't really know what to do. I don't think back then, thinking about it, the idea of therapy or the idea of mental health would be impacted was even a discussion. It was just, this happened. I had a lot of friends in high school that were no longer my friends after that because they stuck up for the guy who hit me. And then they tried to kick me out of the school and get me to go to another school. And then we took him to court. But, rich, very, very wealthy, graduates from Hopkins went to Yale, went to Harvard, some of the most powerful people in the world. So, yeah, that died pretty quickly. But then, you just move on and, you go to college and you just pick up the pieces and you keep going. but you don't realize how that seed of violence gets planted.
Yeah, I was just about
You know?
to ask, what did that teach you about yourself, especially in understanding the trauma that came along with this experience?
Um, I don't, at the time, what did it teach me about myself? I think reflecting on it, to be honest, Nia, uh, a lot of my memories were kind of cut off because it was just, a couple of weeks after that, I had performances. So,
Mm,
I had to get back to work. I was working a job over the summer, two jobs actually. So I didn't have time. Yeah. And Mike just said, I remember you rarely spoke about that incident. I, yeah, I didn't, because I just kept on moving. And I just thought, oh, I'm just going to hit the gym. That's what I do. I just hit the gym and
mm,
look better and go out there and meet people. And, straight up, if it wasn't for Mike or his family, I could totally see a version of me out there in the multiverse that went off the rails and hated all white people and hated just pretty much everybody because
mhm,
an entire school to turn on you. And my brother and we were liked at Hopkins. I belonged to different social clubs and things of that nature. So that violence and then the things that happened after that just made me feel like I couldn't trust people. If you weren't Mike and you weren't GQ, and then eventually we met Dre. But if you weren't Dre, Mike, GQ, or like my family, like my people, I didn't care. I don't rock with you. And so
yeah.
even throughout college, there were friendships that I had and people that I connected with that I always kind of put a little bit at arm's length because I
Mm,
had trust issues after that.
mm,
And so yeah, I think what it taught me was you can't just you can't just trust people, right? Right.
mm,
Okay. And if an institution that betrays you, which it did, I haven't been back to Hopkins since.
mm,
Not for any school functions. I think I went there for work a couple of years ago when there was an event, a financial wellness event that took place there. But other than that, I haven't stepped foot back in that school.
wow. So we're kind of already into this next question, but what are your personal experiences with mental health?
Yeah, I think outside of the anxiety issues when I was younger, that spot of violence that happened at high school, I would say my introduction to mental health really started to happen when I got into the work field and I was on my own. And I was a financial advisor, a Northwestern Mutual representative. And when you're commission only, and y'all know because y'all are commission pretty much being in this industry, but when you're commission only and you work hard and you don't get a paycheck, that hurts. So I remember having this moment where I broke down in a garage and I had my car there and I closed this huge piece of business, but I found out that the guy I closed lied to me. And so when you lie in an insurance application, so anyone that's watching, don't lie on your insurance applications because if you do and they find out, they can actually cancel your policy. And back at the time when they canceled this policy, all the money I got up front that I was 21, so I just, I spent it.
Right.
Now I had to give it back. And I remember having this moment in the parking garage, where I broke down, just crying and kicking the tires of my car because I was so frustrated and I freaked out because I didn't know what I was going to do for money. I
Right.
go to my parents and ask them for money, and so having a panic attack at 11 o'clock at night in a parking garage was when I realized, like, maybe I should probably talk to somebody. But that took years, years.
Mm,
It wasn't until I ended up in a relationship where there was domestic violence that really was the motivating factor for me to get help. And
mm.
after that relationship, that's when I started to really take my mental health seriously and seek out professionals and read what anxiety attacks are, panic attacks are, and try to meet it head on and deal with it because it's not easy.
Yeah. And that first panic attack is always really rough, you know.
Because you think you're
Um,
like, it feels like, or at least for me, and I've had panic attacks as recent as December of last year. So for me, it just feels like I can't breathe. I can't stop crying. I have to like I start shaking, and it honestly feels like someone's in my brain taking the puzzle pieces that make up me and separating them slowly. So I start to lose elements of my mind and what I'm supposed to do, and it's terrible. I hate it. So,
yeah, it's not fun.
oh, it's
I
terrible.
definitely went to the hospital my first panic attack, and it lasted for. I keep looking over at Brooks. Everyone, Brooks is right here. Say hey, babe. No, but anyway, yeah. So I went to the hospital my first panic attack, and had to stay there for hours. Like my body had spazzed up. I didn't have any control. Like I was
Yeah,
literally like it. It was intense. But you've actually had shared two really tough experiences already. I'm only in question three, Jeff, but I'm really, really glad that we talked about your experience in high school with the Caucasian males, because that was 2001. So we reacted to those things totally differently than we do now, you know, and how it affected you was, not being able to trust, So then you get into this experience at work where someone lies to you and you still can't trust,
yeah, exactly.
So it's like you keep getting these, and I think that's kind of, what happens is that we keep having the same experiences in different, avenues or phases or
Yeah,
whatever it may be of our lives. So there's definitely always something that we have to learn from these experiences, you know.
you have to. I mean, if you don't, then you kind of just, you stay in the same place.
Mhm.
And in a way, it feels like a beautiful tree that starts to rot. You can
Mm.
see that when it happens, when a tree starts to rot, and you see from the roots the way that it gets darker and the life from it slowly seeps out of the tree. And that's what it feels like, I think, when you don't get the help that you need, because that darkness just grows in silence.
Mm.
And you try to fill it with other stuff, which is what I think I did a lot of the times, and hurting the people, mostly the women that I was dating, or the folks that I was hanging out with, and it just it's not great, because then a domino effect happens. And even though I'm always I want to be held accountable for my actions, and I look back at old Jeff, and I'm very much like, Jeff, why'd you do that stuff? Still, I think, and I'm like, all right, well, I know the root cause of it. It doesn't mean that hurt people should hurt people. It should
Mhm.
never be the case. But thinking back to those days where I didn't trust people, I barely trusted, women at the time. Um, it just caused for a lot of hurt people to be around me. It's like a blast radius that goes off, and
Mm.
close gets hit by that blast. So yeah, it's important to take care of it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, you know, I think the message is like pay attention to what your experiences are, there can possibly be themes of things that you continue to experience. Like a lot of women, for instance, um, experience sexual trauma kind
Mm,
of back to back to back, and
yes.
it's a horrible feeling to think like, what is this trying to teach me about myself, you know? And of course, it may have nothing to do with you, but I just feel like there's always a lesson. And if we can find the purpose and the reason to something, we can work our way through it,
And I love
you
what you
know.
said about purpose, because purpose seems like it's almost like gravity. It keeps you very grounded. It keeps you focused on what you're supposed to be looking at when maybe darkness is surrounding you. It's the light that guides you.
Yeah.
Without purpose, and if you're going through depression and mental health challenges, it's like being caught up in a tornado. Like what do you do at that point? Where does it end? So yeah, I think purpose has helped me a ton, especially in the last couple of years as I recovered from the domestic violence incident. Really
Mhm.
thinking about what do I want to do with my life? What are my values? Who are the people that I want around me that I want to share those values with? And how do I explain or better give someone the tools and resources to support me in a friendship or support me in a relationship when it comes to my mental health and the
Mm.
boundaries that I need to set for myself to also protect that mental health,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Boundaries. Keyword.
Yeah. And it's hard, right? I think it's hard to set boundaries when you don't trust people or you have a natural
Right.
trust for people because then it's like, well, my boundaries, I'm just going to walk away. And that's not really, if you're not
A
communicating
boundary.
ghost, that's not effective either.
Mhm.
I apologize. I could talk forever. I don't mean to throw you off your agenda. So, yeah,
I
you know,
just randomly threw my pen. Yeah, no, I'm with you. But there was one more thing that I wanted to say. Now I feel like
sure.
I'm going way back. But you know how you were talking about how you didn't seek therapeutic help immediately. I just wanted to say that most people, it takes them about 8 years to seek therapy from
Well,
the onset of their mental illness or trauma or addiction or whatever it may be. And 50% of people, once they have gone to seek services, do not return.
why do you think that is?
I think, okay, this is what I say. When you're dealing with mental illness, it has to be mind over mind.
Mm,
Your mind has to be stronger than your mind. So it's it's a really difficult process because the only way you can really get out of mental illness is just to fight and claw your way up out of that thing. You're not going to wake up the next day and everything's going to be better. You're not going to like meet a person that's just going to change everything
exactly.
unless it's a therapist. And even with a therapist, like, you have work that you have to do. They're giving you tasks and they're making you think about things, and you're having these deep conversations, and you're going back and making realizations about things that you have experienced as a child, like that experience that you explain with the teachers, going back and really discussing what that means, and even going back even further and thinking
Yeah.
about what the other teachers, what violent possible thing that they did that was just kind of a little more subliminal than the hit in the face.
Well, yeah, they did nothing, and then later on, I remember both teachers. One was a history teacher, and one was I think he was the gym teacher, tall guy with blonde hair. The other guy was shorter, whiter with black hair. Um, but they just kept coming to me and saying like, "Hey, Jeff, like he really didn't mean to do that. We care about you here. And all that type of stuff." So yeah, yeah, I think even now talking about it, I'm starting to remember more about what happened. And
Mm-hmm.
your brain just buries it. If you don't do anything, you bury it. As you said, clawing your way out of that pit, that's the only way you can do it. But you need the resources to get out.
Yeah, for
I think
sure.
yes. So therapy,
And that's what Thrive is here
and that's what Thrive
for.
is. That's right, right. So, you know, um, GQ said My guidance counselor was one of them that was in the room with you. There we go. There we go. So, you know, all I remember is when that happened, I think I flipped over a table. I walked out of there. I went to the rec room and I sat next to Kristen. And I think she was one of the first people, and my twin, that I told. You know, the moment my parents found out, it was like, right?
Yeah.
Um, but still, nothing. I don't know. I didn't feel like anything. I didn't think there was a result. Like Mike put in here, lack of result. I think it was about something else. But when there's something that traumatic happens to you, where I guess you could be looked at as a victim, even though I'm not a big fan of that word. Um, Without anything happening where you feel like, oh, justice, there's some sort of justice. Without it, you kind of feel like, oh, is it me? Am I the one
Right.
attracting these traumatic things? So, yeah. Man, I'm happy we're having this conversation. Long time coming, Nia. Long time.
Mm, 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 I'm so glad. So, how has your understanding of mental health developed over the years? You know, we're talking about these traumatic experiences.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're talking about how you eventually, you know, got into therapy. So, how has it developed from that time of, you know, the trauma to now?
I think now, one thing for sure is that I talk about it and I know that it's a great, great resource that I think everybody should have. Back then, when I was 17, when it happened, 16, 17, there was a question mark, right? And I think even back then, when I would talk about therapy or the question of therapy would come up, especially in the black community, it was like, oh, well, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? Do you need to go to a mental hospital? Like therapy was associated with crazy. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't like that, and I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of folks in the black community stayed away, especially in the 90s and the early 2000s. Like it wasn't really talked about. So I would say my understanding of mental health now is the same as the gym. If you want your body to be fit, well, you know you got to eat a certain amount of food. You know that you got to eat your calorie intake needs to be less than what you burn for the day, so
Mm-hmm.
you fit and lose weight. Your brain is just as important, if not more important, than the body, because without the brain, the body does nothing. Your body could shut down and your brain can still be active, right? So it's important that we look at both, and even maybe a third. You know, my twin was on here, and he's a very very big spiritual magnet, grounding person for me. And even in our discussions, I think, okay, so I need to be spiritually well, my body needs to be well, and my mind needs to be well. And I think those three encompass what wellness means. And so
Mm-hmm.
my understanding of mental health is now it's a requirement, not an option.
Mm-hmm.
It's a best practice, not a, oh, that's only for white folks, or Caucasian
Mm-hmm.
folks. Like, um, and it's not, right? Like, I think going through traumatic experiences in and of itself, it's important for you to seek mental health. But then when you have the understanding of like, hey, we're people of color in America, most people of color in this country, even though I think things have gotten substantially better, um, since I was a kid, it's still not where it needs to be. And those experiences, even when we look on Instagram or we look on our news feed and we see brothers and sisters getting killed, that reinforces trauma. It reinforces the things that we've all, experienced at some point. So yeah, I think my understanding now is it's a requirement. Seek therapy. I think it's important for people of color to find other people of color therapists that either that have a good understanding of it, or if you're going to go to a therapist that's not a person of color, oh, they got to know their stuff, right?
Yeah, for
Because they
sure.
they have to understand that you are going through things in this country that maybe someone else with a different skin tone doesn't have to even think about.
Right.
So yeah, it's necessary, and it's a good best practice. And shout out to Damien because that's my guy. So shout out to
Do
Damien.
you think this is this is just a question that came up?
Sure.
So this is, of course, just want your opinion. But do you feel that all Black people have experienced some form of racism in their lives?
Hmm. Um. No, I don't.
Okay.
And the reason why I feel that way is because there are folks that grow up in bubbles. I think of, a perfect example, I think of Lil Wayne, actually. When they asked him, did you experience anything racism in your life? And he said, hey, my number one fans are Caucasian. My attorney, my accountant, the people that support me and has made me millions and millions of dollars. He's like, black folks aren't the ones buying my records. When I go to when he goes to perform and he looks at the sea of people, the majority of the people there are Caucasian. So I think it depends on your perspective and where you grow up in the bubble that you live in. I think if you also grow up in a community that's mostly black, it's very possible that in that tight knit small community, you may not experience racism at the level of, let's say, when GQ and I were in school, someone wrote nigger on a bathroom wall, right? Like that's what we had to see growing up. Or a bunch of kids that, Caucasian kids are throwing rocks over the fence and damage a car. And then the people on that, and this was third grade, people on that other side of the fence whose cars get damaged come over, they see two black kids, and then they go in and start talking crap, right? About towards us and saying like, hey, you're the ones who threw the rocks. You're the ones who did this. So I think it depends on where you grow up. I mean, Gerard and I grew up in predominantly Caucasian schools. We went to private schools, so there were times where Gerard and I didn't get invited to a birthday party. The entire class gets invited to a birthday party, but the black kids, and there were only two.
Mm.
My twin scores the highest in California's testing, and they won't allow him to take um, like AP classes in school despite the test because they think, oh well, you still need work, you still have work to do. Gerard brought up the guidance counselor at Hopkins, but we had a guidance counselor and at Hopkins and also Madison Minister Schools, specifically Madison Minister School, that when my parents were thinking of getting us into private school, they told Gerard, oh well maybe you should look at Trumbull High. Maybe you should look at public schools because that private school is, it's really hard to get in. And my twin aced the shit out of that test. So what are you gonna do, right? Yeah, that's your name, Mrs. Mankiewicz. Shout out to her if she's still alive, Mrs. Mankiewicz. Uh, so I don't know, Nia. I mean, a part of me would think, going to Morehouse and having that talented 10th W.B. Du Bois type of mentality, we would think, in trade schools, right? You would now. I think the education that I've received and the incident that happened, I was definitely on this. Oh, white people are all bad except for Mike and his family. Uh,
Mm.
Most black people we're all in the shared experience together. But as I've gotten older, I've met people of color who are conservatives. I've followed some folks on YouTube. I've had conversations with folks across the country after what happened in George, with George Floyd. So no, I don't think all black people, as a rite of passage for being black, experience racism.
Mm.
What I hope is that we can empathize with the majority of us that do. And
Mm.
for those that haven't experienced racism, to know that it's definitely still going on in this country. Like there's this weird with critical race theory and everything that came out last year and really since 2020, there have been a lot of people of color that have spoken up and said, hey, I don't want my kids learning this stuff, or hey, I'm not being oppressed. I'm not a victim. I'm free. I'm this. And it's like, great. why are so many people globally treated differently for having darker skin tones? So we
Right.
know that it's a systemic problem that permeates civil society globally, not just in our country.
Mm,
So yeah,
yeah.
there's that term, stay woke, which when it came out, I don't like new terms. So
Me either.
when new language comes out, when they're trying to explain like what this is, I'm like, just call it what it is, man. But when I remember hearing "Stay Woke," and I guess Childish Gambino was the one who put out that song, right? Uh,
Hmm.
it makes me think like not woke in the sense like everyone else is asleep. It's just like keep your eyes open because if you don't, you will believe what you see on Instagram. Keep your ears open because if you don't, you will believe what you hear on Fox News or CNN and MSNBC. Do your research and have a good understanding of what's happening and the conversations that are happening in this country. So I know that was a very long-winded answer to your question, but I hope I was able to shed some light to why I feel like not every black person experiences racism, but they can
Yeah.
empathize with the fact that a lot of us do.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that perspective. So, keeping with the black folk,
Hmm.
so, and speaking about the artistic community, do you
Hmm.
think we're a little more open to mental health in the artistic community?
Absolutely, I think so. I mean, I would say the biggest voice of mental health right now comes from an artist and an entertainer. Well, one in the black community, right? Charlemagne, the God. So shout out to Charlemagne for putting it on all of his platforms, from Comedy Central to The Breakfast Club to the books that he's put out. He's put out two books. I think he's putting out a third later this year or next year. Like we artists are the most vocal about, hey, we need this, right? You know, we look at what happened with Regina King recently and her son. This artists are the ones that are bringing this front and center. So I'm so happy that you have found and discovered a purpose in Thrive because it's very, very, very much needed. And I think artists are the ones that usually, even in film, right? Y'all are the ones that tell us these stories that help us better understand our human conditioning. So
Mm,
through music, through acting, y'all are helping us better understand what it's like to be human in black through the
mm.
film and the work that's coming out. And I'm very, very happy about that. I mean, there's a rapper. His name is NLE Choppa, right? So when you think of that name, NLE Choppa, and you go and you listen to his music when he first put it out, it's the stereotypical young man growing up in, I like to call it a jungle, right? Because when we think about the rules of civil society, when you are outside of civil society where your friends are being murdered or you're going to funerals every other week or your method of getting out is by doing something that is illegal, you're experiencing trauma. You're experiencing a lot of stuff. But this young man was able to find meditation, stop doing drugs, and put out an album with him like meditating on the cover. And now he goes and he talks about mental health wherever he goes. He talks about it. He was on the Breakfast Club a couple of days ago. And yeah, look what Mike just said. Look at how Kanye's been treated by the media and in his struggles. Sometimes when we think of artists, and this is just a theory, right? Um, I feel like God balances out. Balances
Mm,
us, balance the person out. Like if you are a genius and you're a high level creative where you can exist in a plane of creativity that people only dream about,
hmm.
balance. So now your brain that can execute at that high level is now going through, for Kanye, bipolar disorder, anxiety and depression, right? And he's been very vocal about it. Like even on public stages running for president, he's been vocal about it. So yeah, I think artists are the ones, and Thrive are paving the way for us to stay woke and take our mental health seriously because we have to.
Yeah. And you know what's so interesting when you say, okay, so honestly, I kind of stopped paying attention to Kanye, but with him, with you saying he has bipolar, anxiety, and depression, that's my cocktail. And I could only imagine having all of those symptoms and being as known as Kanye is, because when I was just a little artist where no one knew my name in New York, I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, I'm misrepresenting myself. I don't want anybody to see me. I don't want anybody to know. I can't go anywhere. I can't meet anyone because I just felt so wrong. And
Yeah.
so just to think about Kanye having the platform that he has, but also having the mind and the chemical imbalance and all of that that comes with that mental illness. I, I mean, it to me it explains so much.
It does. It does. And I was just thinking outside of Kanye West, I was thinking about Halle Berry. Did you see the movie Bruised yet?
No.
Bruised is about this. It's such an amazing story. Everyone that's joining should watch this. Watch this movie. But she clearly puts mental health as a focal point to get her to try to, get past it and get back in the ring. I mean, a lot of sports movies, a lot of boxing films or martial art films are about the mind, not so much what you see. And so I think that movie really puts it in perspective. Like there's this part in the film where she has a panic attack and her son, the one that she's supposed to be watching, she says, "Stay right here. I have to go into the bathroom." And she goes in the bathroom, and you just see her going like this, and she can't breathe. And I looked at that. I was like, I don't think I've ever seen a film, yet alone directed by a woman of color, but starring a woman of color, in which we get to see what the mental health panic attack and the things that that character goes through as part of her human conditioning hero's journey story, um, to be redeemed, because that's what she's looking for. She's looking for redemption. But in the middle of her having a panic attack, her son comes and knocks on the door. And because she's freaking out, she says, "Go the F away."
Mm.
He goes away. And now she has to get over, yeah, there's Brian. What's up, brother? Yeah, man, we're more than college roommates, man. We family, brother. Uh, but yeah, like I was just blown away. So I look at Brian and you, Nia, and Brooks, and my twin, and everyone that I know that's trying to get into this industry. And I'm so happy that y'all talk about this stuff because it means that when you talk about it, the rest of us sees it.
Mm.
And that's super important.
Wow. Wow. Thanks, Jeff.
Hmm.
A little warm inside. Um, so, how does the subject of mental health inform the work that you do?
That's a great question. I I worked on a song, for my partner, and it's about mental health. And so it definitely makes me think about when I create, I want to create from a level of authenticity. I think in the age of so much fake stuff and filters and Snapchat this and air, brushed Photoshop that, I really think there's a market for authenticity. And
Mm.
it makes me feel like the work that I do has to be authentic in my life, reflecting my life intrinsically. Is that, yeah, I have mental health challenges. So when I create, it's going to inform that. I wrote a song and I sent it to my twin the other day, but I wrote a song about addiction and but it's very very like abstract, but it's still about, hey, I used to be addicted to sex, or I used to be addicted to porn, I used to be addicted to this, and I'm in a situation where I can clearly see the steps that could lead me back down into the pit, right? That could lead me back down into some of those really, really bad habits. And so I got out of there, which was,
Mm,
but even when I got out of there, I was like, all right, well, how do I talk about my experience?
mm,
So I wrote a song, and that's what I do now. So when I'm going through something that's tough, or I have a panic attack, or I'm thinking about an issue that I'm having trouble processing, and I just write music, and that's the way to do it. So, poems, music, I think it definitely informs the work that I do because I want to again be authentic.
yeah. And you know what's so cool about being an artist is that you have this medium inside of you that
Yeah.
you can always get relief from. You know, I think about when I actually allow myself to go into a class, when I can get past the anxiety and when I can get past the fact that I'm not where I used to be, and when I can get,
Mhm.
past all of that and I actually allow myself to go into a class, I almost always like walk out bawling, like just crying, can't even take it because I'm like, oh, I just, it's just
Right?
like, you just feel whole again and you feel complete and you feel wrapped up and it just
Yeah.
feels good. So to be able to have that medium, whether it be writing, singing, acting, dancing, poetry, being a graphic artist, a painter, who cares? Just having that medium, and you don't have to be a creative to do it. I paint. I love painting, but I can't even draw like like a shape perfectly. You know what I'm saying? Like I just go for it and I'm like, this color and that color and whatever, because you just get that relief. So I don't think you have to be an artist or a creative to do this, but just having that medium where you're using your hands, where you're going into your mind and thinking of an idea and creating a story around that idea, just having that release is just really, really, beneficial and necessary.
When you get overwhelmed by, same example, right? You go in, you take a class, you do something, you feel like this huge weight is lifted off of you. Do you feel love for yourself? Is that another reason why you get emotional because you feel like you just poured a ton of self-love into yourself?
I would say yes, you know,
Yes.
and even like for me, teaching is pouring love into myself, when I was like working on set, oh my gosh, it was like the best experience ever. And I was weird in my performance or artistic life in that like I would do something and I would be like, okay, I don't need to do that again. It was almost like I would mark things off of my list.
Mm,
But still everything that I did, definitely there was a piece of love that, I was adding pieces of love to myself every time I, had that experience. You think about the people that you meet when you go on different jobs and when you do different shows, like these people become your best friends.
that's
Like
right.
literally half of my bridesmaids were people that I had met on a job or just met dancing or, so you make these real connections with people, through your artistry.
Yeah, I even now when I'm having challenges and things of that nature, just being able to go to the piano, like I miss it. It's my friend. And in a way, it's the closest thing I can get to anything that's divine is when I lose myself in playing.
Mm,
Like in a way, and I explained this to my twin before, and I'm curious if you feel the same way. And I love what you said, right? You don't have to be a creative, or at least what we think a creative is. Like you could paint circles, and that might do it for you, right? You're a painter, you're an artist, one and the same. But I think about this gate that exists in our normal lives. Then when we tap into the flow, if anyone on the call has seen Soul, this is what I'm talking about.
Mm,
When you tap into the flow, it's the closest thing I think you can get to a divine experience. And
mm,
when you are closer to the divine, whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever it might be, that's where I think healing can also come from. That's why I think in
mm,
my journal, I'm trying to get all the bad ideas, thoughts out, or I'm just trying to get stuff out. Because when stuff is out and my mind is open and I meditate, then I can hear God. I can hear the universe. I feel more connected. So playing for me and just thinking about my mental health, right? As far as in informing the work that I do and playing music, it's always healing. And so for you, when you're going through something, taking a class, that's what does it for you. So I just want everyone out there to find, well, what is it? What's your thing that taps you into the source of your existence and your purpose?
mm,
Because if you feel
mm.
that, that's how you could feel better. That's how you could heal. And by the way, I just want to say I wrote down mind over mind, and that might end up somewhere on the list, or as part of the body. So yeah,
Yeah,
and I love what Mike said. Love too, for a spouse, child, not just creative outlets. Yeah,
yeah,
it's for everybody. And
yeah.
love is important because when you pour that into yourself and you feel self-love, you feel more armed to deal with the universe pushing back at you with whatever it's throwing at you. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Again, long-winded way to answer your question. Be here for hours.
Well, I love what you said. I just wrote this down. What tapped you into the source of your existence?
What taps me in?
No, you said that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
We
so
get tattoos, mind over mind, and then tapping
and yeah,
source. Right. Okay.
we can go today. Look,
Cool.
I'm always ready for a tattoo.
Same.
So what are some things that you do to maintain your mental health?
I love that you said that. Let me actually get it out. So, I have a wellness journal. And in my wellness journal, I write down things like daily actions, right? So when I wake up in the morning, I journal. That's the first thing that I do. The second thing that I do is that I write in my wellness journal. And the wellness journal for me is the first thing is an inspiration quote for the day. So I'm just gonna open up to a random page, right? Um, I wrote down, "Are you done?" Then I put
Mm,
yes. Then I put good. Do one more. And that's because
wow.
we went to the Griffith Observatory and we hiked, and it was like, oh, it was so much work. But when we were done, we started jump roping, and then we were tired, and Brooks was tired, right? So he stopped jump roping. I was like, hey, are you done? He was like, yeah. I was like, great, do more.
Mm,
Show me more. So I think the inspiration quote for the day is important. The next one is, I can make today great by, and I put down getting it done and having no fear. I have some big ticket things to do, get it done. And then it asks you what your mood is, what your energy level is. And then the daily actions that I write down are typically I walk for 2 to 3 miles a day, listen to an audiobook, read the writer's journey or the hero's journey so I can learn about screenplay writing, um, apartment hunting, and call my son. And so when I do those daily activities, then I'm like, ooh, I feel better because I feel like I'm moving the needle closer towards my goals and my purpose, right? And then I write down what I'm grateful for. And so I wrote down laughter and stories, friends and discipline, sunrise and jump roping, um, new people of color friends, which was dope because that was when I met Monique, and I met and not met Monique for the first time, but it was one of the times I was able to interact with Mo and her husband Brian. And I wrote down Mike's on the call, so it's crazy, but I wrote down Mike's honesty
oh
because
wow.
friends that are going to keep it 100 with you no matter what's going on, Mike is that person for me. So when I need
Mm,
truth and I want to hear what the real is, there are times where I'm like, all right, let me pick up the phone, let me call Mike, because he's not gonna, not saying that he's not gonna spare my feelings, but he's just gonna give it to me straight, and then
mm-hmm.
talk about it, right? Other times I've written down like, hey, the fact that God has given me the ability to have a remote job, so I can live in California. I have an opportunity to stay with family. So the first thing that I do in the morning is I write down also, what am I grateful for? So that definitely helps as well. And then I keep promises to myself, no matter how small
Mm.
they are, because keeping the small promises to myself forms a feedback loop in which I can trust myself. And if I can trust myself, then guess what? I can trust other people.
Wow. And
So,
that takes us right back to what we were talking about earlier and your past issue of not being able to trust, but being able to keep promises to yourself. You're allowing yourself to trust you so that you're able to trust other people. So
that's
somehow
right.
you found, that purpose that, that we were talking about earlier. The purpose of having these untrusting experiences was so that you could trust yourself. And now trusting
Yeah,
yourself allows you to trust other people, you know.
that's
So
that's
it's,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
all the things
Yeah, Nia.
come together.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I get excited about this stuff because there were days where I didn't think I was gonna make it, like legit, didn't think I was gonna make it. And after that domestic violence issue, and it happened in my house. So no matter where I went, I was confronted with it. I couldn't sleep in my bedroom because that's where it all happened. I could barely be in the family room because that's where I got attacked. I could barely go anywhere else. And so being able to really get through those dark moments when you have a structure in place, now I have a map, right? So when I fall into the pit, well, I already have my map when I fall into the pit. I know where I need to go. And I think that's the important thing. I don't think falling into the pit is no longer going to happen. So anyone with mental health challenges or depression, you're going to find yourselves in the pit throughout your whole life. It's not like you get there once, you claw out, and you're like, I did it, and then I never have to go back. Um, like it's so important to know that what your process is. And for me, it's this, and journaling and talking and communicating. I think when I was at my lowest moments, I didn't talk to Mike, right? I didn't call my brother. I just stayed in that house, and I drowned myself in terrible, terrible activities because I felt terrible about myself. But
Mm,
when you feel good about yourself and you start eating better and you go on walks and you work out and you journal and you read and you take care of your health, well, then you start to feel better about yourself. And when you
yeah,
do, you're able to go back out there in the world and you're not afraid. You're not as afraid of the world anymore. And as Brooke
yeah.
said, yeah, it's a method to living.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you went back to that because we've talked a lot over the past however long you've been here. Um, how long it's been.
Like,
Um,
not just three.
but about the structure, it's like you are really structured. You're gonna make sure you go to sleep on time every night, you wake
That's right.
up, you do your thing, you're always going for your walks, yeah. And Action Jackson, who I think is your cousin, said self discipline makes you free.
That's right. It does. It absolutely does. Make up my bed the first every morning, so that way when I walk back into the room and I have to go to work, the bed's made, things are organized. And this comes from green lights, but structure allows you to make your have your freak flag fly, is what Matthew McConaughey says, right? And it's the same thing as jazz. People listen to jazz and just think, oh, you're just improvising, you're just improv. I was like, no, man, there's tons of rules. There's rules to jazz. You have a foundation, and when you have a good understanding of the foundation, then you can experiment. And
Right.
same thing with mental health. When you understand the foundation of how to climb out of that pit, well, now you can go and take chances, like pick up your life and move to California without an apartment because I have my map. So when I start to have anxiety or negative thoughts, I'm able to do thought work. I'm able to listen to my audiobooks, Rachel Rogers, and man, it's life changing. Absolutely life changing.
Writing.
And yeah, everyone pick up that book. We should all be millionaires.
Oh yeah, we
The
should all
greatest
be
one of the
millionaires.
greatest books I've had the pleasure to listen to. So huge help.
Yeah. I was reading Mike Has to Go.
Baby's up, gotta jump. Yeah, man. Go get my nephew. Make sure he's good to go.
um well, and that's so glad, Action Jackson. I'm so glad that this is helping many, including you. So I really appreciate that because that's what we're here for. And that's why I do this consistently every week, because if I can just reach, for me it's like just reaching that one person, or if somebody can go back and watch this and really think about it and maybe even take notes for themselves, that's the reason that we're here doing this. So thank you for that.
Of course.
So what can you share? Last question. What can you share to motivate people to keep going, to seek help, or just to let them know they're not alone?
I want, and this has helped me, think about what your future self, think about your future self. Really think about your future self and ask yourself, what do you want that person's life to look like? What do you want that person's life? What type of experiences do you want that future self to have? And then ask yourself, are you on your path to that future self? And if you're not, get the help that you need. Keep moving, keep going, because you need someone to chase. And I'm always chasing my
Mm,
future self because my future self is dope. And I'm dope now, but my future self is even more dope than I am. My future self has his mental health in order so he can manage a Fortune 500 company. My future self has his mental health in order so when he has kids, more kids, because I have a beautiful boy right now, but hopefully in the future I have some daughters. I now have the tools and resources to give to them because I've worked on myself. So
mm-hmm.
I want us to think about our future selves, and I want us to think, are we feeding that future self the energy necessary to be successful? And if you have mental health challenges, just know that your future self is also going to have those challenges. But, and I think someone sent this to me recently. I don't know if it was you or somebody else, but oh, it was my friend Ariel, and she was talking about grief. And I still feel it's the same way about trauma or anything that's going on in your mental health. The grief or the issue doesn't get bigger or smaller. It stays the same size, but you could grow around it. And the bigger you
Mm,
get, or if we think about it like a house, right? Let's say your grief or your depression or your mental health or the things that you're going through is like a dark room. If you live in a house that has like 500 square feet, well, that dark room is the biggest part of probably your house. But as you start to do the journaling, as you start to do the meditating, as you start to feed yourself, your house gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so one room that used to be big is now tiny. You build a mansion, you build a villa around that room. The room never changes. But now it's just this tiny thing that's encompassing hundreds of thousands of square feet of life.
mm.
And so that's what I want us to think about. Like build the mansion around the issue. Because then, yeah, that door will exist. And yeah, you might find yourself going in there from time to time, but it makes it so much easier to leave because you know all the other rooms you got in your house and you have a team and you have support around you to help you. So, again, another long-winded way to answer one of your questions. But yeah, I think chase your future self, feed yourself healthy thoughts, healthy food, healthy everything, and really eliminate hanging out with people that don't also feel the same way. Because whoever you hang out with is who you're going to be.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Geoffrey
Of
J.
course. Of course. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
I enjoyed this, and it looks like everybody else did too. I must say, this is the most active the chat has ever been. So
Nice.
thank you, everyone, for joining in and tapping in. My love, my fellow dance brother, Jamie, and GQ, and Mike, and
Thank you,
Brooks,
Diane.
and Action Jackson, I don't know how to say it. But thank you all, and whoever else joined, really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm still scrolling. Wow. Okay. So you can catch us next week. We'll be here. I'm actually gonna have I was just about to call you Gerard. I'm gonna have Jeff's twin on week after
Really?
next.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yes, so
Great.
okay, Action Jackson. Got it. I was like, Action Jackson. Yeah. But yeah, same time, same place. We are here every Saturday morning and afternoon, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Central time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's why we are Saturday mornings and afternoons, because it's happening at the two different times. We're on different coasts. So
You global now. Yeah, you
yeah, we're
global.
pretty global.
There
Yep,
it is.
that's
All
how it works.
tones.
That's how it works. And if you want to learn more, I will be posting more on Thrive Artist Group very soon. Our website will be launching soon, so I'm really excited about that. And we'll be having support groups and one-on-one coaching if anyone is interested in having these conversations one-on-one. I am a trained counselor, certified, as well as a certified life coach. So if anyone ever wants to chit chat away, I am always here, and you can contact me right now through Instagram and eventually through the website. So Jeff, thank you so much.
Of course.
Yes, I think we're good.
That's what we got. All right.
All right. And I always say this, we have to do big smiles.
Okay.
Because we have to have a cover. So we just have to smile for a second while we thank everyone again. I hope everyone has a really awesome Saturday. Thank you so much, Brian. I'm going to have to interview you.
Yes, brother. Come on.
Brian, you
Yeah,
are coming. I'm going
absolutely.
to have to expect a text message from me very soon. I would love to have you on, Brian. I'm sure these interviews, they just get better and better. I mean, it's just amazing, and I'm so grateful. So thank you, everyone. And Jamie, I'm calling you too.
There
So
we
if
go.
you're down, I'm calling you. I'm writing your names down right now. Okay. All right. So thank you again so much. I've said thank you a million times. So everyone have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday, and we'll see you here next week.
All righty. Thank you,
All
Nia.
right. Thank you.